Everybody, thanks for watching. And just a quick reminder, today is officially the last day that you can get in on the Never Pay Again Lifetime Membership sale. It will officially end today, but the link won't be taken down until Tuesday. So we only have a certain amount of people we can let in between now and Tuesday. So once it hits 50 more people, the link will be taken down. So the next 50 people basically have until Tuesday. So other than the people who I spoke to who sent me emails about a later date, anybody who purchases between now and Tuesday will get in if you're within those last 50 people. But if you don't see the link up there tomorrow, if it's taken down, that's because 50 people got the last spot. So if you want to get lifetime membership, Never Pay Again, it's your last shot. This is it. It's done. It'll be gone after between now and Tuesday, put it like that. So it could be down tomorrow. So take advantage. But appreciate everybody who bought the book. Second edition is out. It is now available. As I said, the first 500 people will get the next two books half price, as well as the audio book. So yes, the Self-Inflicted Religious Deception second edition will have an audio book that will be coming soon. Everybody who gets those now 800 spots, because the first 500 spots filled up in less than 2 days. So I added 3 more 100 spots, and right now it's like 70 spots left for that. So you guys will get 50% off the next two books, as well as the audio book for free, which the audio book is basically going to be a good value. Trust me, you're going to be basically making your money back for what the audio book is going to cost, because I've been putting in a lot of time into this audio book. It's going to come out in 6 parts, breaking down the chapters. So definitely a lot more stuff. It's going to be an audio book, of course, than the actual book, because I'll talk a lot more. A lot of people have been asking for audio books. So I always get emails from people talking about listening to the videos while they're driving to work and so on and so forth. So the audio book is going to be really, really good. So that will come out soon. But thanks to everybody who's been purchasing. And as I said, the book is available, and 2 more books will follow pretty soon. Also, real quick, everybody, Oculus Quest 2. I talked about this in the previous DVD about how it's the future. This is going to change everything. This is what everybody's going to be using eventually. And as I said, they basically stopped producing the Xboxes and the new PlayStations so they can have people buy this because they want this in every home. But it's a good thing when you understand what it's going to do and how it can be used. So we're definitely going to be using it at Merkabah Academy. I will be using it to do live lectures. And as you can see here, you can do lectures where you guys can join me, and we can create a atmosphere to where everybody who is a member, this is for only lifetime members, Never Pay Again members, you'll be able to join these live lectures that I'm going to be putting on using Oculus Quest 2. So you get a chance, you have time, purchase Oculus Quest 2. But I'm going to get into this video because it's just, I'm always debating, believe it or not. I don't have to do the online, debates like we used to watch. And what usually happens for me is, because I have a lot of family and friends who watch my stuff, and I'll get a phone call from somebody. And they'll, hey, I got another one. A Christian or Hebrew or Muslim or somebody who they know, I got another one who think they know. And then they'll call me, and then we'll be on a conference call, or we'll be on speakerphone, just going at it. And it usually ends well. So 2 quick points I really want to get into when getting into this whole thing. So many different teachings that we find with, biblical religions, with, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We know it's different denominations, and different people believe in different stuff within those 3 major religions. So it's just the same with the Hebrew Israelites. Different Hebrews believe different things. So I had a lot of people talking about, well, all Hebrews don't believe that the King James Version is accurate, or not all Hebrews hate Africans, so on and so forth. So remember that. It's just the same with Christianity, who got a whole bunch of different denominations, and same thing with Islam. Different Hebrews believe different stuff. But just the same with those books. It's not backed by any facts, any proof. So you got to understand that. Now, you have what the majority of Hebrews believing in the King James Version and believing that Deuteronomy 28 is this prophecy that fits Black people. Now, they're right in the fact that it fits Black people, it fits African Americans. When you read Deuteronomy 28, it's nowhere around that. It's something I don't debate, that is talking about African Americans. So we look at that. And then again, it's easy for people who's looking for something to believe in and have hope in to read that or hear that and get all emotional about it, because it kind of blows you away if you don't have any knowledge. It's like, wow, it's talking about us, not talking about nobody else. And then so much prominence and respect has been given to the Bible with no proof. It's what was burned into our heads and drilled into us as children. We watch grown-ups worship this stuff still to this day. And TV and billions and trillions of dollars back up the Bible. So when you see something like that, it's emotional. It's emotional. So I understand why people who see that get emotional and they believe it. Like, it's talking about us. But you have to understand, Deuteronomy 28:68 is not the same in the oldest biblical manuscripts. The King James Version was written between 1604 and 1611. It is different than the oldest manuscripts. It's his version. So I already showed you guys Deuteronomy 28:68 is not the same in King James Version as it is in the older manuscripts. This is why the Hebrews have to say, well, King James had a spirit put on him, and the scribes had a spirit put on them to give us the correct translation. Because they know, the ones who are scholars and dig this stuff up, they know it's not the same. So you have to just make it that King James got it right, and all the stuff before him is wrong, even though when you read the official reports, they use this stuff to create the King James Version. Why would they, if God put a spirit on them to just write this stuff flat out from thought, why did they use the Masoretic text? Why did they use Textus Rescriptus and Vetus Latina and the Vulgate and the Septuagint? Why did they go through all this stuff if God just put a spirit on them? They used those books. You got to understand who King James was and what that's all about. But it's not a prophecy. Deuteronomy 28 is not the same as Moses supposed to have wrote, 4,000 years ago or what have you. It's not the same thing. And that's what you guys are believing that when you read Deuteronomy 28, there's something that was written over, 4,000 years ago by Moses. And it was a prophecy written so long ago and it came true. So you're all emotional and reading and thinking that this was something that was written beforehand. When no, it was written between 1604 and 1611, where slavery was already going on. And they knew everything. They knew about the yoke of iron. They knew about what was happening to the slaves. So it's not a prophecy. Another thing, and this is one that a lot of Hebrews say, how they can't stand Africans. The African Americans is different from Africans. So Black people in America is different from Africans in Africa. It's a whole different species, different people, not the same people. And those Africans in Africa sold us into slavery here in America. So they hate Africans for that. Not all of them, but the majority. And the thing with that is, that just takes a little teeny bit of research. One, you had the Songhai Empire. We know they were not Hebrews. They were enslaved. That's a fact. And two, this whole notion that Africans just started the entire slave trade. They built, St. George's, or they built the slave castles over there in Ghana. They didn't build these places. They didn't build Cape Coast. They didn't build those castles. These castles were built by the Swedish, the Portuguese, ran by the Dutch, the British. Everybody had their hand in this stuff. Africans were hired to do a job. And tribes beefed with each other, so they sold their enemies into slavery. And there were so many different circumstances surrounding the entire thing, and so many different stories when you read about it. The Danes had a lot to do with this whole thing. So you can't just say, oh, Africans did it, when you had, clear as day, these Europeans build these castles and set this stuff up and begin the slave trade. So that's one. Another thing, you had over 20 independent nations that surrounded St. George's. 20 independent African nations. Now, if it was all Hebrews, it would only be one. It would only be one nation. So we know they were not Hebrews. We know we had the Metu and different tribes from the Fante Kingdom who were enslaved. Fante Kingdom, everybody knows. If you study this, they were the first kingdom to basically go against the British and go against the Dutch to basically push for the abolishment of slavery. They wanted to end the slave trade. So if they were, just on this whole kick of just selling Africans or Hebrews specifically into slavery, why would they go out their way to fight the white man to try to free us from slavery here in America? You know about Bado Bonsu. I talked about him, who got his head cut off, and the Dutch basically returned his head not too long ago. They pickled his head to preserve it for over 100 years because him and a bunch of other kings, they fought. They fought against what was happening, and they were killed. Not everybody sold out, but again, not everybody that was a slave in Africa were Hebrews. What's wrong with y'all? That's a fact. It's easy to look up and see that these people were not Hebrews. So you can't say everybody that was enslaved that was brought over here to America when we got proof that these people weren't all Hebrews. So it's another thing. Also, just because it's old, it does not give validity to your doctrine. So just because I heard Hebrews say, oh, Harriet Tubman, she was Hebrew. Frederick Douglass was a Hebrew. All these people were Hebrews. All these people was Hebrews. So, we had Hebrews over 1,000 years ago, and this tribe is Hebrew, and the Igbo, and the Igbo, and the Ibu, and all this. Oh, this is how they say. So what? So what? That's a fact. Of course, we can go back 1st century BC, find Black Hebrews. Doesn't prove nothing because you guys don't understand the story and what happened and why that exists in the first place. So you got to understand, of course, Black Hebrews. How is that possible? And when you understand, and this is one of the reasons why you guys don't know this, because this information is what's going to kill the whole doctrine, going back to the source. So then now you have to start tracing that book. Now, the reason why they want you to believe that King James had his spirit put on him and gave us the correct translation is for the cutoff. Plain and simple. That's the cutoff. Because then now you're not looking before King James about your doctrine. And as long as you're not doing that, even if you want to go back to the Masoretic text and the Dead Sea Scrolls, as long as you stop there. Because if you go any further, the truth is going to come out. So when you start going further, what you're going to run into? The Septuagint, Greek. That's what they want to keep you away from any knowledge or anything about the Septuagint, because that's where it all breaks down. So you have to understand real proven history and understand this thing and why the whole thing with the Hebrews is tied up with the Egyptians and what that's about. So a lot of y'all thinking, oh, we just want to be Egyptians, or we just want to not understanding what this stuff really is about and what you're going to find if you do the actual research. So Ptolemy II, Philadelphus, who is the one who commissioned, supposedly, according to the letters of Orestes, which is proven pseudo, commissioned that the 72 Hebrew elders do a translation of the Hebrew law into Greek, which gave us the Septuagint Greek, which there's absolutely no proof of this translation. And Hebrew scholars will tell you they would have never done such a thing. They would have died before they did a translation for the Gentiles. So we know it's bullshit. Now, there's absolutely no proof, even though you've heard that the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, there's no proof of that. Absolutely no proof. We have no proof of a Hebrew manuscript that predates the Septuagint Greek. There's absolutely no proof of one. Understand that. So we have proof out of nowhere, the Septuagint Greek given to us by a white fake pharaoh who crowned himself pharaoh after a conquest of the Egyptians. Why is this important? So when I was in Egypt, I went to the Cairo Museum, and take a look at this video real quick. This is from the Greco-Roman era. Greco-Roman, when they came into Kemet and tried to basically, be like us, steal our shit. You see their statues here, they're putting their own little section. They actually came into Kemet and carved themselves into a lot of the walls. Here is the actual statue of Serapis Christos right here. You can see him. Serapis. You can see when they had Zeus, Ammon. So you can see where the stuff came from. Zeus, Ammon. Look at this wannabe pharaoh right here. But look at the face, clearly. This is the Greco-Roman era. You see how they try to decree themselves like us. Make stelas. See, it's all in Greek. Bullshit, all here. Everything that we tell you about this stuff, it's all here. It's no bullshit. It's here telling you the truth about how they stole from Kemet. And this video is important because I'm showing you proof, facts of Zeus, Ammon, and Serapis, who we know these Greeks tried to force this doctrine on the Black Egyptians that was left after conquest. So we know the Persians conquered and they ruled for years until finally the Greeks took over. And after Alexander died, you had the Wars of the Diadochi and you had the spreading of Hellenization. Now, understand the Wars of the Diadochi. Big key in this whole thing. They're going out and they're conquering Europe and Northern Africa. Plain and simple, from African people. So when you're reading the Bible and you're reading the Old Testament and it's talking about all this conquest that the Hebrews are doing, it's the Greeks that it's actually talking about. Because it's the Greeks who's doing this conquest. And the reason why they're giving you the Hebrews is for you to really connect the dots to understand. It only fits one people, just like we fit Deuteronomy 28. The conquest of the Hebrews in the Bible fits one people. And that's the Greeks. So you know how to match it up, which I did in the previous video. We're not going to get into all that. Now, it's important because you have the Wars of Diadochi, you have the spreading of Hellenization, which was the spreading or the teaching of Serapis, because you had the cult of Serapis, and you have Zeus, Ammon, and it is the Greeks trying to force these beliefs on the African people, the Egyptians, the Black Egyptians that existed, back during that time, which what we call Israel today was a part of the Egyptian empire. Plain and simple. So you have Black Egyptians there, Black people in Israel. So now when Serapis didn't work, when Zeus, Ammon, and all of them didn't work, they came up with Judaism, what we call Judaism, which probably was called something else back then. Plain and simple. So you had this happen. And you have many Greek scholars and many scholars during this time trying to figure out who the Jews are. Because just out of nowhere, you start getting this reference to the Jews who people just start calling these people Jews. But who are they specifically talking to? Now, this is where you have to know real history. Plain and simple. Just like y'all come up and y'all say, well, ain't no way in the world somebody that looked like Jesus would exist in the Middle East during this time, right? But you can say the same thing for the people that's there now. Why are people not realizing that? There was all Black there. There's Black people there. That's who was there. They were the Black Egyptians and Africans that lived in Israel, what we call Israel and Lebanon, before conquest. Because after the Greeks conquered, we know Rome came in there. And then after they enslaved and spread everything out, they came in, the people came in. And then the Arabs came in later, as we'll get into, that begin to mix in. So when you go to Greece, as I talked about before, you go to Israel, look at the people. Just look at their faces. They either look 100% white or they look like a mix of Arab and white or just straight up Arab. Now, what's deeper, and as I explained in previous videos, the last couple of DVDs, what's deeper is just understanding why. Why religion? Like, what is this whole thing with telling these stories and getting people to believe in these stories that's so important that once the Romans conquered, the Greeks, that they continue Hellenization. So you had Rome, which we know about the Caesars, and we have Rome who had this whole big thing, their own thing going on, conquering everything. Just think about Rome before the Greco-Roman period and what Rome was about with the Caesars. Then once they conquered the Greeks and we get the New Testament, we start getting the Peshitta, Syriac Peshitta and everything like that. You had complete changeover. Oh, Constantine was a pagan, and was pagan is a derogatory term that the Romans came up with. It's a derogatory name for people who don't believe in what the Romans believe in. So if you're a pagan and you call yourself a pagan, you don't know shit. It's a stupid thing to call yourself. They call anybody who didn't believe what they believed in pagan. If you worship nature or it was about nature, if you wasn't believing what they believed in, you were pagan. It's just that simple. So supposedly Constantine converted, so on and so forth, and that's what happened. But you have to look at the fact that they gave it all up, their beliefs, to accept what the Greeks was putting out there. And we got the New Testament written in Greek, just like the Old Testament, right? So you have to understand first and think about, why did they do that? What was so powerful about this doctrine, these teachings, that they converted everything that was done over and continue Hellenization to continue what the Greeks was doing? And to continue, the story, you might as well say, because you had Old Testament, which is not far-fetched for you to believe that the Greeks created, because you could point out the fact that the similarities between, as I talked about, Adam and Eve. You have Eve and the apple. You have Pandora's box. Deucalion and Pharaoh with the whole Noah's Ark thing and the flood story. Samson and Hercules is parallel in Greek mythology, which existed before the Bible. It existed before the Septuagint. So this is stuff that you can easily go and look up. We had Greek mythology long before anything biblical. It's the same type of stories. So it's not far-fetched to make that connection. So that's all they did. So when the Africans in Israel, or the Egyptians in Israel, went and take to Serapis and went and take to Zeus, Ammon, and all the other guys they tried to push on them, they came up with this doctrine. They really enforced it with the children. And then you have what's called generational indoctrination, to where once the kids get it, then everybody else follows, because the kids go and spread it. And that's what happened. They had priests and everybody go out and start teaching this stuff. And that's where you had them going out and teaching this whole message. And once they got all the Africans out of Israel, and then you had the whole, the war between the Persians and Rome, with the involvement of the Arabs, who basically was the hitmen for Rome, you might as well say, who went out there and conquered the Persians for the Romans, wiped them out almost. And then the reward for the higher ups was to go into Egypt, because the Romans, the white people, could not stay in there, and they didn't want us to have it. So they let the Arabs go in there and take this spot. And then they mixed in so they can survive there. They mixed in with those Arabs, and it's the people who occupy this space today, what we call Israel. That's why they look that way. And they got Islam out of it, and they've been running with it ever since then. It's one of the reasons why all three of them share the same type of prophets. It's not hard to understand this stuff when you really do research and look at it, but we're going to go much deeper than what I'm saying, because y'all think I'm just some nigga just talking who's trying to be right and just think he know everything. So we're going to go into scholarship, and just going to cut to my last video real quick. If you've seen it, you can skip through it. But these are the facts. Plain and simple right here. You don't want to listen to nothing else that I said in this video. Listen to this and understand these are the facts. And this is what you're going to find if you do actual research and look. So anybody that's doing research on the Jews, the Hebrews, 4th century BCE, if you're looking for anything, on the Jews prior to 4th century BCE, there's only 4 sources that you can really go to. 4. And of those 4 sources, only one has real tangible, evidence that you can really believe. And he's the only one that everybody really goes to. So this is how you can break this stuff down. This is how you know who's who and who's doing the research. Because anything anybody said besides these 4 people is pseudo. It's bullshit. It's iffy. So these 4 people are the suspect one. I start with them first. Josephus, right? Josephus. Then you have Aristobulus. Then you have Diodorus Siculus, who this is largely about, what Merkin wrote it. And then you have Hecataeus. Hecataeus and Diodorus is basically the primary people that he's sourcing for this book that Merkin wrote, because that's who you have to source. If you arguing with somebody about this and they're not citing, which the Hebrews will not, They won't. And you're going to find out why in a second. If they're not citing Hecataeus and Diodorus Siculus, forget it, because it's pseudo. It's pseudo. We're going to get into this in a second, but understand that. So you have Hecataeus, who is a large part of this book. He was 25 years old when Kemet fell. So he had 25 years of seeing Kemet being ruled by Egyptians. 25 years of that. And I believe he died in 550 BC. So he had 25 years, or that's when Kemet fell, was 550. So he knew, he had knowledge. Hecataeus understood what was going on. He's a historian. Look him up. He's a Greek historian. And he has two very important works that everybody knows about when you start researching this guy, Hecataeus. So you have Yanela Yer, which Yanela Yer basically means genealogy. Yanela Yer, Greek, means genealogy. Right? So Yanela Yer, genealogy, and Storia. So Storia is basically your history. So Storia, Greek, history. That's where we get story. Storia. Yanela Yer, genealogy. That's his book. That's what it translates into. The most important book is his one that's basically on his journey. The journey that he fucking took, supposedly, around the world. Which is pronounced Periostos Gamma Sigma. Periostos Gamma Sigma. I got to say it a couple of times to get it out. But it basically means journey around the world. So you have these important books by Hecataeus. And he's known for these books because he supposedly traveled and did this research on these civilizations of people, which is why he must be cited. Now, there are only about 300 or so fragments of these books in existence. And you have Theodorus, who is known for being, a person that had this library of books, of rare books. And supposedly he had probably a more fulfilled book or manuscript of Hecataeus' words. So it was fragments, but probably more complete than what we have today. Now understand, Diodorus Siculus was born, about 400 years after Hecataeus. So we're talking about hundreds of years later that he's referencing Hecataeus and his works, Diodorus, right? So that's one of the important things to understand. When people are going to reference, they're going to Diodorus, who is referencing Hecataeus, who is important because if you're going to say what somebody said, we need to know who this guy is and what he said exactly. And the thing with Diodorus and his writings, because Diodorus is paraphrasing Hecataeus. He's paraphrasing him because he's not going directly from manuscript, copying what he said specifically. He's paraphrasing from the fragments that he had. Now, according to Diodorus, he never mentions them. He never says that he spoke to any Jews. In fact, he says that what he heard about the Jews came from the Egyptians, which makes it even more suspect that how could you not have spoken to any Jews? And it says here, let's read. The undisputed fragments of Hecataeus and Diodorus Siculus Library, Book 1, display no awareness of the Pentateuch, while the account of the Jews in the Book 40 is so divergent from the Pentateuch as to guarantee that Hecataeus did not have access to Jewish writings, translated or otherwise. These difficulties are usually overcome by postulating that Hecataeus learned about the Pentateuch from Jewish priests living in Alexandria. But a second difficulty is that in Diodorus Siculus Library, Book 1, Hecataeus repeatedly named Egyptian priests as his sources. Nowhere did he claim to have had contact with Jews. If Hecataeus had contact with Jewish priests or had access to Jewish writings, he would have doubtless have said so to enhance the authority of his account. But Hecataeus made no such claims in undisputed fragments. Third, the detailed information Hecataeus allegedly presented about the Jews in Book 40 was not quoted or utilized by any author from 320 BCE to the time of Posidonius and Diodorus Siculus in the 1st century BCE. That Theophrastus read Hecataeus is certain. Yet, the description of Herodox Jews and Theophrastus on piety markedly differed from the detailed knowledge of Orthodox Judaism in the allegedly Hecataean passage in Book 40. Manetho's dependence on Hecataeus of Abdera is certain, yet his knowledge of the Jews was limited to their location in Jerusalem. That's all they know about them, where they came from. They didn't really know much. 2nd century BCE Alexandrian Jewish writers such as Aristobulus and Pseudo-Aristeas, which the letters of Aristeas is pseudo, and they had already came to the conclusion that Jews wrote this later on. The extensive research in the classics, including Hecataeus of Abdera's Aegyptica, but failed to discover a single passage in which an early Hellenistic author of Hecataeus' time or earlier quoted Jewish scripture. That so many writers on the Jews who were familiar with Hecataeus knew nothing of the context of Diodorus Siculus' library suggests that the latter passage did not derive from Hecataeus, meaning it's all bullshit. And you have to understand, this is the foundation evidence of proving the validity of the Bible. This is what you have to go to. The whole thing about the letters of Aristeas, all this stuff, it's all suspect, it's all pseudo. The only real tangible proof is what we have from Diodorus on Hecataeus' supposed writing of, what took place. That he doesn't say he met any Jews or anything like that. So I get Hebrew after Hebrew quoting, Josephus, as if Josephus was this major knowledgeable source who had, real good provable information, where he was always quoting from Aristobulus, which Aristobulus' information was pseudo. And it's even saying here in the sightings. It says down here, Josephus, in conducting a similar search on ancient writings for reference to the Jews, had to resort to the Jewish forgery Pseudo-Hecataeus. And this is on the page. It says Aristobulus writing circa 150 BCE will likely have cited the source behind Diodorus Siculus' library, which he didn't, if it existed at the time. And Josephus is citing Aristobulus, and basically we know Aristobulus stuff is Pseudo-Hecataeus. Because if it's not, then he would have would have stated what Diodorus had, which he does not, or something better, since he lived, before him. But we don't get that. We don't get none of that information. So, bunch of stuff to look at. Now let's continue down here. It says, thus, despite the doubt attached to many quasi-historical details in Aristobulus' works, it still appears likely that he was correct in such basic details as the Septuagint originating under Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who I always talk about, and the involvement of 70 scholars associated with the Judean Perusia in executing this project. We may therefore date the Septuagint with reasonably high confidence to the period of 273 to 269 BCE under Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who was a white Greek. Since the Septuagint provides the first objective external evidence for the composition of the Pentateuch, the date of the Septuagint translation becomes a terminus ab quem for the books of Moses, which that's Latin. That basically means this is the only time that you could date this, around this time. That's basically what it means. It's the limit, or the only time you could date something. There exists no external evidence that the Pentateuch was written earlier than this time. Boom. Than this time of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. A proposed date of composition for the Pentateuch anytime prior to 269 BCE is permitted by current evidence and must be seriously considered. Significantly, although external evidence for the Pentateuch is lacking prior to the Septuagint translation of 273 to 269 BCE, the Septuagint set off an explosion of derivative Jewish writing in the 3rd century BCE, both in Syria and in Egypt, The following is a list of the earliest known Jewish writings with approximate dates of composition. None of it predates the Septuagint Greek or the 4th century BCE. And as I said, the stuff is legit. We should find stuff. Historians, people around that time should have been talking about, there's no way in the world you can have what happens in the Old Testament, not written about as much, and then have stuff that is like so meaningless, like just talking about the gravestones of the Greeks. So elaborate, same thing with the Egyptians. And if they do all this stuff depicting what happened in these people's lives that we can find, no way all of this stuff goes down and then we find nothing on the Hebrews. And again, as I pointed out, Herodotus, Greek historian, says nothing about the Jews. One of the things he cited says, neither Herodotus nor Hecataeus of Abdera claimed to have consulted the Jews. Rather, the Egyptians were regularly cited as authorities throughout Diodorus Book 1, thought to have drawn heavily on Hecataeus of Abdera. Hecataeus of Abdera appears to have drawn exclusively on Egyptian oral sources supplemented by Herodotus. Never talked to any Jews because they didn't exist. It says here, Hieronymus of Cardia, the historian of the Wars of the Diadochi, 323, when Alexander died, to 278 BCE, fought under Antigonus Monothalamus in Palestine in 312 BCE and was assigned to supervise the collection of Ausfat or asphalt from the Dead Sea. He never mentioned the Jews. I'll leave it at that. And it says down here, the earliest Greek writers who mention the Jews thus provide no external evidence of new developments in the evolution of the Torah. At the time of the Elephantine Papyri, 494 to 400 BCE, we have authoritative Jewish priestly regulations, but no evidence that these have been committed to writing. The Elephantine Papyri also testify to toleration of practices contrary to the Pentateuch. As late as 315 BCE, Theophrastus described contemporary sacrificial practices among the Jews that the Hebrew Bible condemns as heterodox. The first mention of Moses as Jewish founder and lawgiver occurred in Hecataeus' A Aegyptica in 320 to 315 BCE. Manetho also mentioned Moses probably not long thereafter. Neither author attributed writings to Moses, although both appear to have viewed him as the lawgiver of the Jews. Other than the disputed fragment of Hecataeus in Diodorus Siculus Library 40.3, the Septuagint translation is the first definite evidence of Jewish writings. So it's clear as day what's going on here. The stuff that they was writing about contradicts the Hebrews, their supposed doctrine. And they're reading this stuff and it's like, no way this could be Hebrews if this stuff is real because they're doing stuff contrary. And then to really dig deeper into this, you got to understand that these are Greeks. Plain and simple. These are people who are, even if they're black, they're people who was basically grew up in Greek understanding of things. This is later after the conquest of Egypt. Egypt is over 100 years gone now and conquered around this time. So we're talking about a couple 100 years later, so they are basically being indoctrinated into this Hellenization and the rituals. So contrary to what was written about, what must have happened is they came up with the story. They came up with who these Jews are supposed to be. And they got priests, they got people to go out and spread this story. So it reached the ears of historians and people who was documenting the times. So all these historians you have, when you start to look and research this, they're gathering around and trying to figure out, okay, we know these people are Jews. These people are supposed to be these people, but they're saying this is what happened to them. This is who they are, and so on and so forth. Let's validate this. And then they're going out. Now, we don't even know, one, Hecataeus, and what he actually said. We don't even know because everything seems to be in, fragments. We can't get no real information because it's in fragments. But they have the fragments to say, oh, this person existed because we have fragments. But there's still no way to know if he existed or if he actually wrote this stuff. Diodorus he's paraphrasing. He's going off of what he thinks. Remember, this dude was born 400 years later. He don't know if Hecataeus is real, but he got his hands on this information that could have been easily planted for him to find. and write about later, or anybody to find and write about. The point is, there's no real proof of these Jews. There's absolutely none. And just like we can go and find the tombs of all these other people, there should be mass tombs of these Jews. But the Hebrews believe, oh, God took them away. Oh, why don't God take y'all dead people away? Why did God leave them in the ground? But he takes our dead people away. Okay, where's the civilizations? Where's the artifacts? Where's the writings? Where's any of it? There's no proof. And then, again, why would your God give your doctrine to the white man before you if you are his chosen people? Because we can clearly see before King James, we had Ptolemy II Philadelphius. We had this whole creation of this Hebrew mess. Period. It's all pseudo. All of it. I don't even take the fragments as being truth. And we still only have a fragment of the Septuagint, so we don't even know what it originally said. Clear as day, as time went on, they added to the story until you get up to Saint Jerome all the way in the Vetus Latina and then the Latin Vulgate, what everything that was done with that whole debacle. And it's like, what is this stuff? And you people believe this? Are you serious? All of the mess surrounding this because they don't teach it. They don't teach it. And you got to understand what all this means. Again, this is why the whole part before, me reading this stuff, is important to know. Important to ask the question, why? So now let's get to the bottom line of this thing. Let's cut the bullshit. Y'all want to focus on this fairy tale shit that y'all know y'all can't prove and ignore. One, King James was a Mason. It's a fact. He's a Mason. The man who he got to help him edit the Bible, Sir Francis Bacon, is considered the father of Freemasonry, right? This is why they have these Masonic Bibles. Have them. So y'all want to ignore all this. Ignore the fact that you have the Masonic layout Washington, D.C. Ignore the fact that on the back of the dollar, when you put the star over it, it spells out Mason. Ignore that in that layout at the top, you have the Scottish Rite Lodge of Freemasonry. Ignore everything that we see. George Washington was Mason. All this Freemasonry stuff that we see. Y'all want to ignore all that very real shit. The unbelievable, unimaginable pyramids that's all over the planet. Y'all want to ignore all that to chase some fairy tale bullshit in a book that was given to you and taught to you by the people who enslaved you that benefits them in its physical real reality 100%. Us believing in it benefits them in its physical reality. We only get any, reward when we die. And y'all want us to accept this doctrine. This is what y'all want to argue and bicker about. Some fairy tale bullshit. A man surviving in a big ass fish. A dude building an ark, spending 100 years, and he's 500 years old, and he built this damn ark. Not thinking about shit like, well, damn, if God drowned everybody for being evil, killed everybody for being evil, except for Noah and his people, and he left Satan alive? He killed everybody that was evil, but left Satan alive. Don't make sense. Y'all want to ignore stupid shit. Stuff that makes so much sense. Y'all want to ignore all that and just be on some Yahweh Shai. We the true Jews. Shit that y'all can't prove, and ignore all this stuff. This factual stuff. Amazing stuff in front of your faces. Ignore it all. Just to say, oh, we the true Jews. What has that done for us as a people? Absolutely nothing. Only the truth is going to save us. The truth is the only thing that ever could save us and still can. And until y'all start accepting truth, facts, and get this fairy tale bullshit out y'all head and accept what's real. Because it's all you know. It's what's real. You can talk all this hocus pocus stuff all you want. You know what's real. Y'all sitting up here believing and having all this hope and seeing real shit happen and still want to have all this hope and faith and bullshit. Knowing it's bullshit. Damn preachers opened up their churches believing that God was going to save them, protect them from the coronavirus, and they end up dying from it. Or dying from whatever the fuck they died from. People in church get shot and killed in church. But y'all ignoring real stuff to accept this stuff. It's bullshit. We are not true Jews. There's no such thing as true Jews. Here's the kicker. This is what you got to listen to and understand. One, I always talk about this. Pull up the picture, George Bush in the Oval Office and the Jews behind him. Take a look. Look at their faces. This is white people. Talking about Jews running Hollywood and Jews running the world. Remember, Mel Gibson got drunk and went onto a rant talking about the Jews because he was telling the truth. And y'all still can't put this together. Tell you in the Bible, they are not Jews, but a synagogue of Satan. Who do y'all call white man? Satan. Satan. So it's telling you. First of all, there's no such thing as Jews. They created it. Again, the book is called Hebrew is Greek by Dr. Joseph Yehuda. He wrote where he proves 100%. Don't care what any of y'all say. He has it wrong in the fact that he thinks that it's some kind of conspiracy to where the Jews, these so-called Jews, stole everything from the Greeks. But he believes the Greeks are the true Jews. Because in this book, he's telling you what I'm basically saying to you guys. The only people it fit when you're talking about this conquest, the only people who was out conquering and doing anything in this area in real actual history was the Greeks. We can't find no proof that no Jews was out conquering anything. Where's the proof? Where the bodies that was left on the battlefield? Who was the people that was conquering? Where these people at? It's giving you the wars of the Diadochi, and it's giving you the Greeks, the white man, going out and conquering and taking lands from African people. That's what it's talking about. That's what it's talking about. So you look at these people. All they're doing, the reason why we give Israel $35 billion a year, all they're doing is hiding behind the Jews. This is why Israel is a big thing. That's why it's a big thing. This is why all the celebrities, they go to the wall. I talked about this before as well. Look at all these celebrities. Why they all go to that wall? What is it about that wall? Because if you go to that wall, you're going to be blessed by them because they running everything. We're talking about blessings and they talking about God. Why do you think they talking about that? Why do you think they wear that cross and who they really praying to? Because the ones who know what's going on. They know who their master is. They know what this stuff is about, but they can't do that because they're stuck. So when they're talking about thank you, Jesus, and thank you, God, they know they seriously thinking the white man just like you are. Because that's who blessing them. Who blessing them? How is it the Bible is telling you can't be rich and get into heaven, but you have these rich celebrities on stage thanking God? Throwing up stuff that's supposed to be satanic. Supposed to mean devil stuff. They're throwing up devil stuff and doing all this Baphomet and everything, but then they thank God and they got on the cross. Because they understand some shit that you're too scared to understand. People talking about what's the Lil Nas, the sneakers and everything with the blood and all that stupid shit. People going crazy over that and not understanding. These people understand what's going on. So you can say what you want to say. You can not believe it. You can just stick to what you're sticking to. At the end of the day, you only hurt yourself. I don't take Hebrew seriously because if you were truly serious about what you're talking about, you wouldn't be here in the first place. You wouldn't be watching my videos. A lot of dudes have no life and they just want to be argumentative. But if you meet somebody who is trying to really understand, this is the reason why I make these videos for you guys to have the information and knowledge to be able to say boom, 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 and bridge that gap instead of us just fight with each other, which is what they want. You're sitting here arguing about some shit that's not even real. And then now you and your brother got animosity, or you and your brother or sister or person you're talking to, black person, ready to fight, or got this hatred in your heart for each other over some shit that's not even real. I don't want to argue. I hate arguing with my people. I hate it coming to that. We shouldn't be sitting up here getting all heated in arguments over some shit that's not real. And me, I go hard because I get pissed off. I'm just going, I ain't even gonna hold you. I get mad. I'm like, kidding me? Because I know for the most part, keep it real. I know for the most part, people don't believe this shit. They just want to argue because they have no life. They trolls. That's why I get upset. Not that I'm just, I want to just be upset and I'm not trying to help a person who's actually trying to learn, because that's not the case most of the time. The people who actually want to learn, I always convert them. I always bring them right out of the bullshit. But the people who just there to argue and troll, who have no desire to learn anything, they just want to argue, you can tell who those people is. Because they don't come with questions. They come with insults, insinuating, threats. And, that's when things get a little bit heated sometimes. But people who actually trying to understand and want this information and trying to learn, this is the video. This completely wipes out the entire Black Hebrew teaching right in this one video. So it's done. It's nothing any Hebrew who you go and get is going to be able to, he's not going to be able to say nothing. She's not going to be able to say anything to refute what you just watched. You need to understand that. They won't. There's no way around this, because at the end of the day, and that's my final thing on this, for this video, at the end of the day, no matter what any of you guys say, your entire beliefs, because that's what they is, beliefs, rest in faith alone, because you have no proof to back up nothing you're saying. Just faith. There's no proof. All that stuff you read about them finding Noah's Ark never happened. It's bullshit. They came out in a minute, it was bullshit. The whole chariot wheel, one wheel they're supposed to have found in the Red Sea, bullshit. It's a lot. And it should be a bunch of wheels. Bunch of armor and bodies and what have you of those soldiers to be able to prove that actually happened. No, that's bullshit. Dead Sea Scrolls is not older than the Septuagint Greek. We never had a Hebrew manuscript that predates the Septuagint Greek. Therefore, what the Black Hebrews already know, the inception of biblical religion began with the Greeks. So no matter how you want to slice it, there is no Bible, there is no Hebrew, and none of this, Christians, none of it, without the Septuagint Greek first, given to us by the Ptolemies. Plain and simple. So you can look it up. As I showed you guys in the video, they didn't dress like that. They didn't dress like this before the fall of Kemet. You can't find a video or relief or anything of Greeks dressing like Egyptians before the fall of Kemet. They wannabes. It's laughable when you really think about it. So understand that. And again, thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase and support everybody who copped the book and who got in on the sale. I appreciate you guys' support. And see you guys next video.